Hi, welcome to my book review for Call Me By Your Name. I haven't done one of these in a while. I kind of got out of the habit of reading. I also read a non-fiction book, which was the Velvet Rage, and I thought I'd had a lot to say about that, but I thought about it and I thought, oh, this is going to be a little bit too personal and a little bit too self-indulgent, even for someone like me who is indeed making these videos. As always, this will contain spoilers for this book. I'm not going to try to cover up the ending or anything like that. I decided to read this book. I read it very recently. I was travelling home to visit family and, sorry, I got an itchy ankle, bear with. And I, for some reason, fancied reading something a little bit romantic, something that maybe would warm my heart, get my feelings going a little bit. And this is probably the most famous gay romance book there is, and I hadn't read it yet, so I watched the film. Kind of, I stuck it on in the background a few years ago, whilst I was on my laptop studying sports betting stuff. I think probably and I sort of just had it on in my background, and I didn't take much notice of it at all. I kind of got the vibe, but going into this book, I didn't know how it ended. I didn't really know how it developed. I kind of knew the idea of the book, but I knew very little about it. So watching the movie first did not. I didn't really watch the movie first. Seeing glimpses of a movie first didn't ruin the book for me whatsoever. I really enjoyed it. I read it very quickly. I'm not a quick reader, as you can tell by the gaps between some of the videos in the past when I have been reading consistently. I read this book in probably just over a week, maybe. It's not a big book, but that's still pretty quick for me. On the train journey down to visit my family, I probably read about half of it. And then I struggled for time then, obviously visiting family and friends, but I still got through it pretty quickly. And I loved it. Obviously, if I read it that fast, obviously I enjoyed it. I thought it was, really absorbing. I was definitely into it. I cared a lot. I think one of the things that actually helped me care a lot is that, like, I'd say Elio is kind of like my type. And that sounds weird because it's a book, it's a character, you can't see him. I guess we kind of imagine him just to look like Timothy Chalamet, however you say his name, because he played him in the movie so naturally. But it's not, I'm not like, I don't know, I don't find Timothy Chalamet particularly good looking, although he's obviously not bad looking. But that's not why I'd say he's my type. It's like the personality thing. It's as Oliver described it, sometimes it's just like there's like an innocence and then like a twisted sort of behind, like a twistedness behind it, and very talented, and a little bit maybe self-destructive as well, which it's just all of the things that I tend to be drawn to. So I think that probably helped my interest in it a little bit. But it was, I mean, it was just enjoyable to read. I spent much of the book wondering if a lot of the romance of it was due to the setting and the location. When I read The Sun Also Rises, a lot of why I enjoyed that book was I just loved like being immersed in this book about the time and the places, and I just found it so enjoyable and peaceful and fascinating. And I think you get the setting of the Italian Riviera in the 80s, and I think that's just very intriguing, and it's just nice. It's just pleasant, especially when you're stuck in the UK. You get to read about, beautiful sun by the sea in Rome as well in certain parts, and it's just pleasant. And anything there will seem more romantic, I think, and just add a little bit of spark to it. So I did actually spend a lot of the time wondering how much of the romance of this book is created by the scenery, and could this be replicated in a less romantic environment? And I think some of those questions were answered as we progressed. Just to jump to late in the book, when Elio goes to visit Oliver when they're older, and they were talking and drinking, and there was still that connection. There was still that heart tugging emotion there, and sort of excitement mixed with like agony, kind of. And I still felt it. And that was, where was that? Massachusetts? I can never say Massachusetts. That place, that state, I think. And it was rainy and stuff, much more akin to the sort of environment that I'm used to here in the UK, in Northern England. So I guess they kind of answered some questions there. And although that would have been much later in time and nearer sort of my birth time, you still didn't have, and I'll jump to this into another video as well. I'm going to do a second video because this book sort of inspired me to write a book myself, which is a crazy, stupid idea, but nothing bad can come from it, other than wasting time. And it'll be fun, so it won't be wasting time either. Because I sort of wondered, like, could you have this sort of suspense, sort of romance sort of thing with, like, modern day, you know, with, like, Elio on Grindr and he sees Oliver on Grindr, you know, like that sort of thing, with phones and apps and stuff, and you know, you don't have the message under the door there, and you just sort of have someone send a text. I just wonder, could you include contemporary elements of life and technology to the modern day and still create this sort of enthralling, unreal romance? And that's kind of what I would like to try to do in a book myself. I want to see if I can manage to create that. And also, like you say, the Italian Riviera is very, like, it's just a sexy time. Just like when I read The Sun Also Rises, I understood why you have such a great romanticism of France and Paris from America, particularly where you had a lot of American writers here during that time. It all made sense to me once I read that book. And I kind of think I'm always, like, drawn to other times and nostalgia for times and places that I've never even existed in. I sometimes sort of resent that modern day doesn't have that and where I live doesn't have that. So why not try to create it myself? And then maybe I can appreciate the times that I'm living in a little bit more as well. So I jumped forward to that a little bit, but that is the one big inspiration I've taken from this book. I do wonder, I haven't read about Andre Ackerman yet. I'm going to after this video. I didn't want to have any preconceptions for this video at all about other people's thoughts and critical reception, etc. Although I do believe it's critically received well. I'm interested to know the author's experience, to see if he experienced this environment, if he experienced a similar story, what's his sexuality, what his experiences, what informed him, what inspired the book. I'm interested to know all of that as pertains to trying to write a book. Obviously, never going to be anywhere near this standard myself, but still it'd be informative and I think helpful, and I find that very interesting. A lot of the book just felt like, I describe it as like an enviable romance. Like I say, it was also over the top, sort of, not over the top, but it sometimes felt like Elio was trying to make you jealous as a reader. He was really trying to, like, hammer down how much this love was, like, particularly special and different to all other loves, sort of thing, which sometimes I kind of was a bit over, and it got a bit crude with the poop scene. I'm not sure if anybody remembers the poop scene, but if you've read it, I don't think you forgot the poop scene, where they're studying each other. No, they just sort of visually absorbing each other's excrements and feces, which is, again, that twisted part of Elio, and then holding him whilst the holding was kind of cute in a weird way, but generally that was a bit weird and crude. And again, it just sort of made me think, like, okay, you're kind of, like, playing this up a little bit now. Nobody's sort of like, you don't have to be like that. We get it, you're in love, sort of thing. But yeah, sure. And there was a lot of, there was some, like, weirdness, indecision in the book and sort of elements of it. You know, Elio had, like, you know, after they first slept together, kind of didn't feel the same way about Oliver, and then did in certain moments, which was a bit confusing. But I guess that was just sort of pointing to the confusion of someone dealing with their sexuality and having these new and strange and scary experiences. I think that's all that was. But there was the ending I found confusing as well. The sort of close of it, because he jumped forward in time and it started off on a note of a sort of, I think it's 20 years later, so sort of a 37-year-old Elio talking about how others had matched Oliver, he had similar experiences, others had even eclipsed Oliver, and I was sort of like, okay, I can get that. I kind of like this way this is ending and going, sort of thing. Like, it doesn't have to be like this defining what his life, and it doesn't have to be a sad thing. It can just be like, this was like the experience, and it was like magical and tragic in all sorts of ways, but that's life, and there was many more experiences like that. And definitely for, like, a young single guy like myself who, you know, has loved and wishes to love again, this would have been a comfortable ending for me to be like, yeah, I loved him, I was great, you know, great memories and stuff, and it felt like the biggest thing ever at the time, but there were bigger things ahead. That would have suited my emotional stability incredibly well. But then, so you went from others have eclipsed Oliver to suddenly, you know, going to visit Oliver, and it's like in the same emotional state that he was for most of the book, and 20 years ago, where all that seemed to matter in his life and the only meaning in his life came from Oliver and wanting to be with Oliver. So nobody did eclipse Oliver then. That was not true. Clearly, not even close by the scenes of it, because nobody else actually got a name drop. So I find that a little bit confusing. I thought the author kind of ducked some of the biggest moments. I don't mean that as a criticism. I said it. I did say it then like it was a criticism, but I don't mean it as a criticism. I think there was so much build up to moments such as, you know, both of them dropping the act and sleeping with each other and being open with each other. And then, you know, during their time in Rome, and you knew that the pending goodbye was coming, I kept thinking, like, this is going to be horrible to read. This is going to be so upsetting. And I felt like the scene they first slept together was kind of, you know, it wasn't brushed over. It didn't get ignored, but you didn't have much detail into the moment of the first touch and how it developed. It was quite brief, which I get, because I don't know. I thought it would have been good to maybe have it could have been hotter, I guess is what I'm saying, because there were some hot moments in the build-up, like when, you know, Elliot was talking about it. I was like, okay, this is fun. And then that came and I was like, oh, okay, that was okay. I know it happened. That's useful. Now I understand that part of the story. But it wasn't the most interesting part of a book by any means, and you thought it could be. But I think if you try to make those big moments seem as big as they should be, you're probably going to fail, and you're probably going to look like you're trying to. And I think that's probably why I avoided it. And then, yeah, when they're in Rome, all I could think about was like, how upsetting is this goodbye going to be? This is going to be brutal. I don't like goodbyes, it's upsetting. And they never dealt with it. He never dealt with it. It just sort of like, they were there, and then you got the one really brutal sad line, and it was sort of like, little did they know that would be the last time they'd ever make love, and that's sort of like, that's like the ending of the book there for you, and like that's the biggest line of the book, because you know then how it ends, really. You know that's that, and it was that, and so that was probably like one of them. That was really how they dealt with it, and I kind of liked that, because again, like that goodbye, you just couldn't. I don't know. I think if you tried to really go through that moment, you probably would fail to make it as big as just that line of like, they wouldn't, that's the last time. And then you had Elio, you know, sort of back in B. I'm not sure what B means. I guess just didn't want to name an actual place or make up a place, just said B for that. Sort of maybe Brescia, this place in Italy. I don't even know if that's in the Italian Riviera. My geography is awful. So, I mean, I know Brescia exists, so I don't think I'm saying it right, but I know it exists. So maybe my geography isn't quite that bad. But yeah, just B. And yeah, you just sort of had the reality of it, and that was emotional in itself. And I think that he skirted the moment of the goodbye, and I think it was well done in that case. The ending is kind of inconclusive in a way. You know, I mean, you know that Oliver goes on to have a family, but in the times when they are together, you know, which is most of the ending, you know, is those rare occasions in their life when they're together again. Oliver doesn't seem far ever from just saying, to heck with this, I want to be with you. But it wouldn't be like, but you do get that line of that's the last time they ever made love. And I'm not, that's probably coming from a 37-year-old Elio, so I guess that doesn't predict the future after that. But it certainly accepts like that was that sort of thing. And maybe it was from a near-death Elio saying, I don't know. And also, it wouldn't be a happy ending, would it, if Oliver like leaves his family and his children and stuff to spend time with Elio. So I don't think that's really how anyone would read it. Like that goes on to happen. And I also think like there's like Elio still wants it sort of for the entire time, but he kind of accepts that like it can't happen now. And I think there's a part of Elio, like I see a self-destructive element to Elio, and he kind of enjoys the tragedy of it all. And I think that perhaps maybe what allowed him to really enjoy the initial romance was knowing it was doomed, you know, knowing that there was a tragic end coming. and I'm not sure if it would have excited him. I'm not sure if it would have emotionally fulfilled him in the same way without that. I think there is a big part of Elio is this real sensitivity for sorrow and tragedy and longing and love, and I think a lot of love is those things, and I think he really indulges in that, and I'm not sure if it would have been the same I'm not sure if Elio is a happily ever after type of guy. I think I cherish these tragedies, and my life is all about these tragedies and how much I devote myself to them and how much I care about them. So I don't think it would have ever made sense for them to be together, personally. Let's just have a look to see more of my notes here. Oliver was interested. Oliver was kind of like, for like one of the two characters who was really involved in the romance. I related to Oliver more of the two of them because just personality, I'm a bit more like Oliver. Oliver played poker a lot. I work in the gambling industry. I make some side money gambling, so it's just a natural thing there. I guess Oliver maybe a little bit more sort of typically masculine, I guess, although there's nothing to suggest Elio wasn't really. But yeah, you didn't really get to know Oliver that well, I never felt like. You kind of reminded me a little bit like Howard Rourke in The Fountainhead, in like, he's just almost like this Superman type perfect character. And you never really feel like you get beneath the surface. The book's all about, and the emotion of the book is all about Elio. And he's just sort of, I don't know, I don't even know how to describe him, but none of it really comes from Oliver. Now and again, you get a bit from Oliver. I think the most empathy I ever really felt towards Oliver was probably when, I forgot the name of the little girl, Vimini, I think maybe, when he finds out that she passed away. And then it was almost like Oliver's relationship with her is more what gave me sort of a real connection to Oliver, because I sort of felt his pain in those moments. But yeah, he's not the character that you really care for, I think, reading the book. It's really all about Elio, and Oliver just happens to be his love interest. I was interested because when Elio goes to see Oliver again later when they're older, he talks about how Oliver still looks great. He's saying he still looks great. And then Elio describes himself and he says he has fuzz in his hair. And I'm imagining fuzz in his hair, fuzz in his face, meaning he has facial hair. And I'm imagining like a 37-year-old Timothy Chalamet with a beard and stuff. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure if Oliver's going to be that into him anymore. And that was never talked about. I would like that to been talked about because I think it's a real thing. Maybe they have this bond that is much deeper than physical appearance. But he mentioned Oliver's physical appearance. And, you know, I mean, Elio was 17. He's going to look very different when he's 37. I'm not sure what Oliver's type is, but I'm just like, I don't know, I'd like some acknowledgement of, like, whether there's still a sexual attraction there from Oliver. We never really, I mean, he seemed to still feel an attraction towards Elio in person. So maybe it's just beyond that, and that's irrelevant. And I'm a bit shallow at my still relatively young age. But I don't know, I'd like to see that addressed because I feel like so much of a book is about youth as well. I think like youth's a real theme in the book. It's a very youthful romance. And so then to transition to them later and to not sort of address how they've both lost their youth, and how that affects the relationship and the feelings. You know, they talk about how they like them back then were more like different people and strangers. They feel like sometimes, and yeah, you do, because like you say, when you have a relationship with a guy who's so youthful, it's just you completely lost all that, more or less. I'm not that old, but you've lost a hell of a lot of that. And I would like to see that addressed more, because my gut feeling is almost like once they lost that youth, like it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be there. Some of those sparks wouldn't be there. There's a few more notes I have here. Yeah, so there was an interesting claim when Elio called himself and Oliver, when he realised that they were attracted to each other and they've been hiding it this entire time, he called them the shyest people on Earth, the two shyest people on Earth, which I just found weird. I mean, like, just incorrect, because Elio was pretty forward with Oliver, very forward with Oliver. Maybe it took him a while, but eventually was very forward with Oliver. And Oliver doesn't come across as a shy person, you know. He was maybe more shy when he presented, and Elio said that he, you know, learned that, and his father recognised that in Oliver. But he was still a relatively confident person. I mean, they're in this really unaccepting society of their interest, and they have no reason to really believe either one of each other is even interested in the same gender as them, although we obviously do feel the connection there. But I mean, I'm in a very accepting society of homosexuality, and I can sometimes visit places like gay clubs and stuff where I know full well that people are interested in my gender, even though statistically in the wider society they're not likely to do so. And I still can very rarely pluck up a courage to like try on with them, you know, kind of like hit on them. And if I do, it's because I'm drunk. So it just didn't, I didn't understand. They didn't seem like particularly shy people to me. I didn't agree with that claim. Maybe it's more of a commentary on how society and how we have all became a little bit more withdrawn with the, you know, the implementation of technology. Maybe it's something interesting about myself. Maybe I'm very shy and this taught me that. I don't know. But yeah, I didn't think that was a correct claim. But it was also just one 17-year-old's thought, so it doesn't need to be correct, does it? It was just something I found a little bit interesting. The end I did find very sad. The end is sort of just Elio saying, Oliver says, you know, he remembers everything and how he's the same as Elio. And then Elio talks about how if he's the same, why did he never just look back, you know, when leaving, just show a little bit of regret or sorrow or wish sort of thing, I guess. And I did find that sad. I didn't think it was like the most evocative the ending could have been. Endings are sad anyway. I find ends of anything quite sad. Sometimes, you know, we all get nostalgia is a huge emotion. Sometimes we can get nostalgic about things we didn't even like in a moment. So the ending of any book is I just find a little bit sad. And I think because the way the book is formatted is kind of like, you just lose this 20 years of Elio's life, and he just seems like such a talented and full of love person. You just lose like 20 years of his life, and people have died in it, and it doesn't seem to be a future in his life either. And it just feels like this like great big hole of nothing and a waste. And I think that's what made it sad. It's just like this one love when he was 17 just defined him, and he never was able to move on from it. And that's terrifying, and it's really sad. So I did get teary-eyed on the last page, and I think that's why it was just regret. Regret's a horrible emotion. I always think, I was saying to my friend the other day, we were talking about music, and I was saying that one of the saddest lines for me in any song is in Pink Floyd's Mother, which is a song about sort of an overbearing mother, an overprotective mother. And the song talks about, you know, sort of the mother building a wall to protect her son. And then the final line of the song comes from the son. Sort of the music stops and the final line of the song comes from the son. And it's like, mother, did it have to be so high? Talking about the wall and how like his regret and how he feels like his mother's overbearingness, sort of, that's not a word or nothing, ruined his life. And there's no taking that back now. And it was done from love, and everyone just wanted the other one to be happy and safe, and it ruined his life. And there's just no going back from that. And all it existed leading up to it, and of course it was love. And I just find that so sad. And you got that same thing here. They were both in love, and they both just acted with their love, and it seemed to just sort of almost like end Elio's life at 17 years old. And we've gone 20 years. He's lost all of his youth. You know, he's probably lost the ability to fall in love in the same way. And yeah, so that's what I found really quite sad about the book. Let me just see if there's anything else I had to say about it particularly. No, that's pretty much all I had to say about it. So I did really enjoy the book. I'm going to watch the film again now with this knowledge of the book. I'm probably not going to enjoy it. I'm kind of confused about how they've made a film about it, because the entire book is just nothing really happens. It's all about the inner dialogue of Elio and the emotions, and he's not, you know, he's more of an introverted guy emotionally. So I just don't know how you even present it in a film form. I'm kind of fascinated. I don't know how it's going to be interesting as a movie. So yeah, I'm fascinated to watch it. We'll see. But Call Me by Your Name thing is kind of cool, kind of hot. I get it. Like, it's a nice little hook. I think you need sort of like a little hook like that in a romance book like this, and then obviously you get a title and a bit of identity from it. So that's great. I definitely want to read like more like gay romance novels now, and kind of I'm understanding that like. So I stopped doing these reviews for a while, and I tried reading some different kinds of books. I never really read romance books, but some of the books I was trying to read more sort of philosophical stuff, which I do find interesting, but it's quite a hard read. And I think reading this book, I realised like, oh, I am a bit of a romantic, and I am kind of a people person. I'm interested in peoples, and I'm quite sensitive. And this sort of book is the book that's actually going to engage me more than maybe these books about great concepts and stuff, and that's fine. I'm perfectly okay with that being part of myself. So I really enjoyed it. Thank you for watching this if you sat through it all. If you do know any books similar to this, please recommend, that I should check out. Please get in touch any way that you know how to talk to me about a book. I will be doing another video, I think, soon, talking about the book that I wish to write. And I might even do like a whole sort of series on that and my process on doing that, and see how I get on there. So yeah, hopefully we'll see more from me soon. So thank you for watching. I'm interested, my last note I'll say is, I don't know how to work with thumbnails. I don't know how to choose the thumbnails for these videos, so it's just like a random still from any point in these videos, and it's never flattering. You already got like the mirroring, which isn't flattering anyway, and it's just like a random still. So it's always exciting to see what that still is going to look like, but it's not for me. It's actually quite horrifying when I see it, but maybe I'll get a good one. I've had the book in front of me most of the time, so it'd be good to have this is the book, just to show what book I'm reviewing. But thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Please get in touch, and I'll see you soon.